Whatever you do, don't skip this. The ending will shock you.
All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking some source material that, I'm not gonna lie, genuinely sent a shiver down my spine. You know, we often look at data, history, and science on this show, but today, we're dissecting a chilling local legend. It's an urban mystery that's literally defied explanation for decades. The subject of today's deep dive is the 40-year-old secret of Charlie's school. Sounds like the setup for a horror movie, right? But the text we're breaking down today treats this as documented local history from a small American town, complete with police records, abandoned buildings, and some truly unsettling modern-day footage. We're gonna map out exactly what the sources say happened, the timeline, the geography, the whole shebang. The source material actually kicks off with a really haunting question, and I want to pose it directly to you right now. Would you believe a child who vanished 40 years ago still appears in the dark? It's a brilliant psychological hook, isn't it? It asks us to just completely suspend our disbelief right out of the gate. Now, as an explainer, my job isn't to tell you whether ghosts are real or not. My job is to map out the claims, the evidence, and the exact sequence of events presented in these reports. But keep that question in the back of your mind as we unravel this. How much of what we're about to explore is just a trick of the light, collective hysteria, or something else entirely? Well, to understand the phenomenon happening today, we've got to travel back 4 decades to look at the trauma that scarred the small town. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the origin, the 1984 disappearance. So, the tragedy unfolded incredibly fast. In 1984, a 10-year-old boy named Charlie was at school, just playing during his normal lunch break. And then, he was just gone. Our sources highlight that the response was immediate and massive. I mean, we're talking the entire local police force, specialized dog squads, and hundreds of civilian volunteers scouring the area for days. But here's what makes this case so incredibly baffling. They found absolutely nothing. No footprints leading into the woods, no torn clothing, zero evidence. The source notes it was literally as if he vanished into thin air. Ultimately, the community just couldn't recover from a blow like that. Within months, the school was permanently shut down, the doors were padlocked, and Charlie's fate became this dark, unspoken memory. Time passes, right? People move away, memories fade, buildings decay, and this school basically sat empty and untouched for nearly 40 years. Which brings us to Section 2, the exploration 40 years later. Fast forward to the modern era. A group of YouTubers armed with high-definition cameras decide they're gonna pry open those locked doors, investigate the abandoned architecture, and see if they can uncover the truth behind all the local whispers. Now, when the crew first got inside, everything matched exactly what you'd expect from an abandoned mid-1980s structure. They documented broken windows, letting in these cold drafts, classrooms blanketed in 40 years of thick dust, old blackboards still showing faint chalk marks from a bygone era, and these totally desolate, silent corridors. The source really emphasizes that. Initially, everything felt perfectly normal. Creepy? Yeah, for sure, but in a standard urban decay sort of way. There was no immediate sense of danger. They thought they were just documenting structural ruin. But then, the baseline completely shatters. According to the accounts, the crew makes their way up to the 3rd floor. The cameraman is looking through his viewfinder, panning down a long, dark hallway, and suddenly, the camera picks up a small child standing at the very end of the 3rd floor corridor. Total panic sets in. They immediately snap their high-powered flashlights towards the end of the hall, but the light reveals absolutely nothing. Empty space, just peeling paint and dust. So, the team rationalizes it. They tell themselves it's a shadow, a trick of the lens, maybe a camera glitch. They finish up their shoot, pack up their gear, and head home, completely unaware of what they had actually captured. And this right here is where the narrative shifts from a creepy location tour into something deeply unsettling. Because now, the team is back in the safety of their home, it's nighttime, and they boot up their computers to review the digital files. And that leads us to Section 3, the discovery of the terrifying footage. Reviewing that footage revealed an escalating nightmare. First, they confirmed the child was actually there on the raw footage, far away in that 3rd floor corridor. But as they scrubbed through the rest of the video, they realized something absolutely horrifying. Remember, none of them saw anyone while walking around the school, right? Well, the child appears in the background of almost every subsequent shot, and in every new scene, the figure is closer to the camera. So the crucial point here is that this entity was actively stalking them, totally invisible to the naked eye, but perfectly rendered on digital video. And then we hit the climax of the review. In the final shots they filmed, the child is close enough for facial details to actually be resolved. The source describes it super vividly. The child had pitch black eyes and a highly disturbing, unnatural smile. And as if the visual evidence wasn't enough, the YouTubers then decided to isolate the audio track. They stripped away their own talking and the ambient noise of the building, and embedded in that track, completely detached from any human presence in the room, the camera's microphone had picked up a faint, undeniable whisper, "Will you play with me?" Just imagine sitting in your dark living room, hearing that disembodied voice coming from footage you shot just hours ago. Now, human curiosity is a dangerous thing. Most of us would delete the footage, block the town on a map, and never go near it again. But one member of the team became totally obsessed. He convinced himself he needed more proof, a cleaner shot, a definitive answer. Which brings us to a really dark turn in Section 4, the climax, a fatal return. The very next day, this lone investigator made the fatal, terrifying decision to drive back to the abandoned school by himself, and he never came back. When his teammates couldn't reach him, they obviously called the local authorities. The police, who hadn't had to search this building thoroughly since 1984, had to break back in. But when they arrived, they found only his camera sitting on the floor of an old classroom. The investigator had vanished just as completely and just as impossibly as 10-year-old Charlie did 40 years prior. But there was one massive difference this time. The camera left on the dusty floor was still recording. So the police take the camera into evidence. When authorities reviewed that final, continuous file, they witnessed a genuinely chilling sequence. First, a small child enters the frame, walking slowly, deliberately, straight toward the lens of the abandoned camera. Next, the child stops just inches away from the glass. And finally, the child smiles. That exact same dark, unnatural smile the YouTubers had noticed the night before. And then the footage cuts out entirely. The screen goes completely black. The recording simply ends right there, offering absolutely zero clues as to what happened to the investigator in that room or how a camera could just shut itself off in that exact terrifying moment. Following that incident, the local government didn't just lock the doors, they entirely sealed the building. No one is allowed in under any circumstances. But as we know, shutting a building down doesn't kill a legend, it usually just feeds it. And that takes us to our final part. Section 5, the aftermath and the enduring mystery. Because the source material doesn't just leave us with a historical mystery, it leaves us with a modern-day, almost interactive legend. The local claims are highly specific today. If you stand outside the perimeter fence of that school at exactly 3 a.m., the traditional witching hour, you will experience a very specific sequence. The event starts with a faint child's voice drifting down from the upper floors. And the action, well, the voice doesn't just cry out randomly. It calls you, specifically, by your exact name. And this brilliantly illustrates the core tension of this entire text. It leaves us with a really terrifying dichotomy. On one hand, is it truly the voice of Charlie? Is it the spirit of a 10-year-old boy trapped in a loop of his final day in 1984, just looking for someone to play with? Or, given the pitch black eyes, the predatory stalking through the camera lens, and the sudden disappearance of a fully grown man, is it something else entirely? Something dark that merely wears the face of a missing child to lure people into the dark. The source text leaves this intentionally, hauntingly ambiguous. So we've looked at the timeline, the eerie footage, and the local legend that persists today. It all leaves us with one final, deeply personal question, directly from our source material. If given the chance to spend one night alone in that school, would you go? I mean, it's really easy to say no from the comfort of wherever you're listening right now, but human curiosity is a powerful thing. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and maybe, just maybe, stay away from abandoned schools.